Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Such.
And my name is James.
I'm looking straight down the camera, James. I do think now more people watch on YouTube than listen to the audio, give or take.
Really?
I feel like some of the shows on YouTube have been hitting consistently in excess of
What a weird
5
way to start the
figures.
show.
No, because we always think about it as audio, and I look at you and I'm talking to the mic, and I'm like, well, if now more of these buggers are watching our faces, maybe I should look at the camera more than look at you. Hello, YouTube.
Okay, well, let's speak clearly into the mic and look at the camera, and we can have the best of both worlds, Suj.
Peter Piper picked up.
How was your wild card?
In terms of how many points did it score?
Well, you wild carded. You happy with it? You're
Yeah,
not happy
so I
with
mean,
it?
it's a very broad question, isn't it? How was it? I'm happy with the team I chose. Very happy.
That's
with
a
the
good
team
start.
I chose. Yes. Overall, I think it's balanced. There was a few dilemmas that I had. We can't judge it till Thursday, end of Thursday, right? When the next round of these double game week fixtures are kind of done. That will tell me the immediate impact of the wild card. But obviously it was a wild card for 34, 36, and then 37, although less so 37, because by then I'll have used 3-4 transfers to fix up for that 37 double anyway. Yeah, pretty happy with it in the end. There were a number of players that were locked. I would say, like, there was no way that they were leaving. And they were players that were in my team before wildcard. So Haaland, Grealish, Rashford, Trent, Steele, Salah.
I'm so
Isak,
glad you didn't pick Edison,
Trippier.
I swear.
Well, yeah, in the end...
We nearly come to blows on our Patreon pod last Friday.
No, I mean, it was triple City. Grealish and Haaland were in. The points dodge at Grealish. And then it was a case of like Alisson and a City defender, or double Liverpool defence and Salah means what do I do with that? But you raised it was simple. You raised a valid point, right? If they've got a double, Brighton this is with Steele, followed by Everton, followed by a double, followed by a double. If I'm not going to play the other goalkeeper, dead food. So decided to just dead it out.
And you went with Daniel Everson, right?
Yes.
He played well last night, so he's not coming out of the team.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it doesn't matter for me.
No.
No bench booster, doesn't matter. Decided with a double Liverpool defence in Trent and Robbo to go with Salah. I think that the attacking upside is there for them, and thought that was fine. It's also, we mentioned, a cheap, easy way to downgrade and get a bit of money. The Brighton 3, I went with Steele, Mitoma, and then I added March, even though I knew I was going to bench March this week. And that March position, I had contemplated going with Andreas Pereira because he had a double this week. But it was a bench decision, right? So Pereira would have sat on my bench.
So you didn't go with Pereira?
No, I went with
Good.
March. March would have...
The season's probably over.
Oh, really? I didn't see that. Yeah. March would have sat on my bench. The decision was, like, when it gets to 36, I'm going to want to add a third Brighton. And if they're just going to sit on my bench for the next 3 weeks, just add them now. And so if it's McAllister or March, I'll just go with the cheaper one. And I've got my 3 Brighton set up. Because I don't want to book in a transfer. You know, we talked about, like, booking in a transfer for the future. I was like, I want to book in a transfer for a third Newcastle. I've got Trippier, I've got Isak. We don't know who the third Newcastle that we're going to want is, right? Everyone's got big eyes for Callum Wilson at the moment. So I thought, well, if I'm going to...
Except my wife. She doesn't know how well he's been doing.
Oh, mate. If I was to book in a third Newcastle transfer, I didn't want to also book in a third Brighton transfer. So I thought, let me just get March now. It's cheap, right? What am I saving? $500,000. So March was in and sat in on my bench. And then I put Greenwood as third sub. He's never going to get used.
Yeah.
I got double Man United, Rashford and Shaw, high ownership. You know, so I'd say I'm fairly template for people that wild carded. I'm fairly balanced. Triple Brighton, triple City, triple Liverpool, double United, double Newcastle, and a partridge in a pear tree. That's Greenwood.
Green or red at the moment this
Green.
week? Oh, really?
I've gone up to 90,300. I was 91, wasn't I?
Score?
Before?
58.
96 before. 58 at the moment. 10 to go.
Why did you start Isak over March? That was a really big call, Suj.
Southampton.
Wolves.
True.
I mean,
True.
I was out Saturday. There was actually an enemy territory. I was in Finsbury Park with the wife and little Harry, and I wasn't aware of anything that was going on with Brighton. Saw they were 6-0 up, and I was like, wow, how good or bad is this? Because I've got McAllister and Mitoma. Plenty of others got Mitoma, March. Some have got all three, etc.
Yeah.
1 point for all three.
Yeah. But then, so McAllister and Mitoma had a rest, right?
Yeah.
March didn't.
Yeah, but March was.
So who's gonna get a rest in the middle of the week?
Well, probably none of them.
March.
No.
No, I get it.
It won't.
I get it.
It's 5 days from Wolves to Man United.
Yeah, I
so.
get it. But I just thought, I fancied Isak against Southampton because Isak had a rest, right?
Yeah.
And he could have, a lot. Actually, thinking about it, Haaland could have hauled. Grealish should have hauled. Isak should have had more. Looking through my team, Mitoma could have had more. There were more points to be had than I've got on the table at the moment, for sure. But I'm comfortable. 58 with a green arrow and 10 to play. It's comfortable. If I can get up to 80k, another 10k rise, that would be huge. And then 5 doublers for 36. Shitloads of doublers for 37.
You'll probably make that 6 anyway, won't you?
Yeah.
Newcastle.
Yeah. At the moment, it's all eyes on Callum Wilson, but there's still a couple of games to go. So let's wait and see. If I was going to go to Callum Wilson, then it's a case of upgrading Greenwood and finding the money to do that somewhere, which I could
Why
easily
is it? Who's
do.
your other forward? Isak and Haaland?
Of course.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. But then that's what we spoke. How much did you leave in the bank?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I had a bit, 1 point something.
So Wilson, I want to say 7. So this is what we're talking about someone like you mentioned it just now as well, about Robertson.
Yeah, the Liverpool are the ones to come off,
down
right?
to a
Because
3.8 defender.
They don't double in 37.
And you flip it, so then Greenwood up to a Wilson, if that's what you
and
you
March
decide.
is coming off the bench to start playing. So,
That's the only other thing. If you move that to a 3 up front, say Haaland, Isak, Wilson, Brighton obviously have double as well. It's a rough double, Newcastle and Arsenal away, right? But you're going to play them. Who are you going to bench out of? What have you got left in midfield?
Well, that's it, isn't it? Mitoma, March, Salah, Grealish, Rashford. So Salah might be the sacrifice because they don't double.
No, way to Leicester.
In 36.
I don't think so. It'd probably have to be Grealish at Everton,
Could be.
Probably would have to be. That's probably what I've got
You
in
would
my plan at the moment.
expect at some point there's always rotation at City. You would expect it. I mean, Real Madrid is almost now more important than some of their league games. They need to get this Champions League, and they're in the best form they have going into the semis to win the Champions League. Possibly.
When West Ham win at City on Wednesday, Serge,
yeah,
it might feel different.
No, we'll talk about some of these games. This podcast is completely useless to you if you don't have any Man City or Captain Haaland, because that's the main thing with West Ham on Wednesday. They're going to go massive, but you can't make any changes now. If you're in Sky though and you don't captain Haaland on Wednesday, then you need to get off the peace pipe because they're going to go.
Listen,
big.
the only people who are gaining out of Haaland this week are those who triple captained him. Because EO basically everywhere
over 200%.
from every all the way into the million, he was still over 200% EO. I captained Haaland, 58 points for me this week, -4 for myself. Although the -4 has certainly worked out because it was Steele and Trent Alexander-Arnold in for Raya and Chilwell. I would have played Henry had I not made the moves. So the 10 points from Steele and Trent, I'm 8 up, -4. I'm 4 up already with an extra fixture to go. So the hits worked out. Returns for Steele, Trent, Luke Shaw, Marcus Rashford, Mo Salah, Ivan Toney, and Captain Haaland. So 58 -4 for me. In a situation where I'm quite template similar to a lot of teams at the moment. One difference for me, I guess this is kind of a raising point, is what's different in my team to those who've just wildcard, for example. So I have the likes of Toney and Watkins. I bench Watkins this week. Chances are I'm probably going to be benching Toney this week and playing Watkins. And the instinct is, that's possibly going to become my, Isak or Wilson, one of them in 36, and unfortunately probably will, because I want to captain one of them, I think, as it stands, particularly as Newcastle keep conceding the odd goal recently. But most people feel like I can't gain at the moment. I can't gain. If I ended the season now for you at your 90k, you'd be delighted with that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I've never had a 5-figure finish.
So you're quite happy.
Overall, it's probably like Arsenal, right? If you said to me at the start, if you said to Arsenal fans at the start of the season, you're going to finish second, they'd take it. If you offer me 90k now, or at the start of the season, I'd take it. But getting closer, now that I've just played my wild card and I've got that many doublers, I want to get to 50k. Arsenal wanted to get to the
be tough.
It is because of how
even
it is.
Even with the template.
Yeah.
So everybody's moving in the same direction. So one of the things I want to do on this podcast is talk about some differentials that people might want to consider. But the reality is you're going to be going with single game week players versus doublers if you go down this sort of route. That's the problem. We're all, I've got, if you look at me this week, right, so I'm probably going to bench Tony away to Liverpool, which in itself is a bit madness, but I think Watkins at home to Wolves is probably the call for me. There's none of the midfield five I'm leaving out. Salah, the two Brighton at home to Everton, Grealish at home to Leeds, Rashford at West Ham. None of them are getting left out. I'm obviously not leaving Haaland out against Leeds unless we get some information, which, by the way, obviously it's a 1:30 deadline this week, and Man City is the 3 o'clock kickoff. People are going to leave any moves very, very late. And I think a lot of people will roll this week in the event that there's nothing unexpected in that late team news. So if you take me going into next week, 2 free transfers, right, add a third Newcastle player, roll the other one, go into 37, add the third City, add the third Man United. It's probably what I'm doing, but shite, isn't it? People want to look at different things. There are differentials within the teams that we're looking at. So, anybody who free-hitted Brighton players in at the weekend, there's every chance you went with 2 midfielders and a defensive one. Yeah, but for those who went Undav, Gross, and Welbeck
and Sisso
than
Undav and Gross.
Adam Pritchard's free-hitted in Danny Welbeck, for example. So quite often your differentials lie within these same teams. It might be that the difference in 36 is Wilson versus Isak. And they'll probably start one each. It's possible, so I still think Isak's got favouritism in that at the moment. So should we talk the games?
Yeah, let's do it. And listeners, of course, watchers as well. YouTube, James. We are reviewing the remaining double game week fixtures on Friday. So kind of sort of, as much as we are planning for the next game week, we'll have way more information to talk about 35 on Friday's podcast. So, hit the bell, notification, like, sub. What else should they do, Nico? Send us money, join Patreon. Yeah.
5 stars, reviews.
Yeah, reviews, all that
Patreon,
stuff.
Patreon, start of a new
whatever
month.
You need to, if you do all that on Friday, you'll know when this podcast goes out, and we'll talk a lot more about 35 and then kind of thinking about 36 as well. Early kickoff, 12:30, Crystal Palace 4, West Ham 3. As BT Sport on their YouTube channel, they obviously post highlights, as do Sky and what have you, and then they'll put a caption under the video. I can't remember what it was that it said about Palace 4, West Ham 3. It was something like most entertaining Premier League game of the season or something stupid like that. I was like, you're just looking at the score and then deciding to give it a dramatic headline of 4-3. 4-3s are either really good because both teams have played really well, created a lot of chances and had a lot of opportunities, or really shit because both teams have played so badly that they're just conceding and leaking goals at either end.
So which one was this, Suj?
Well, Palace were actually quite good and West Ham was shit. It's a bit of both. But I don't think Palace were amazing. Like, defensive errors again from West Ham, set piece errors, three corners, 3 goals for West Ham, So it wasn't, I wouldn't call it high on quality. It's one of them. It was a tough game for West Ham. I think Palace now have found some attacking rhythm. They're getting their best players on the pitch and they're playing well and they're creating chances. And I think there's a couple that of unsung heroes in there for them would be Ayew and Schlupp. Eze and Elise and Zaha and stuff get the flair, get the attention, but I think Ayew Schlupp, they cause a lot of problems by just hold up play, winning fouls, getting in. They're just a nuisance. I heard before this game, I had to listen to some of it on the radio driving back from Milton Keynes, and they said on the radio that West Ham now, before the game, had played, and this is not an excuse, before and I was I'm crying, we'd played 12 games more than Palace this season before the kickoff.
You were in Thursday night club, weren't you?
Well, and we'd played, this was our 5th game in 16 days or something like that.
Shut up, man.
So, if you played 12 games less, we played 49 games, they'd played 37 games this season, and you could tell. It felt like the intensity of Arsenal, Europa, Liverpool, it was a game too far for West Ham from an intensity and fitness point of view. Everything we did well against Liverpool, Arsenal, pressing and all that kind of stuff just was non-existent. And I think it was a game too far. And the problem is for West Ham, you've got City next, followed by United at home. And I think the other teams around us are doing so poorly in that Forest ended up losing from a winning position. Leeds lost, and the other two drew yesterday. That they're doing us a favour in that we don't need to beat City or United. And if you said to me you're going to lose against City, lose against United, but you'll win the Conference League semi, first leg, I'll take that off you right here, right now, because last 2 games of the season, Leeds and Leicester, I think we could do something. So the point of that ramble about West Ham is City and even United going in this week, if you fancied it, wouldn't be a bad option, because I don't think we're quite at the races, and you get one eye on, we're still winning with the trophy, in May again.
Right,
I'll tell you what that feels like if you want.
Stop.
Palace, on the other hand, are decent, but you're not going to buy them.
The fucking table. That's the only thing I've been thinking about for the last 2 minutes. Okay. Yeah, it's you're knocking something, mate.
Yeah, I wouldn't go so far as to target West Ham. But if you're looking at a punt, I think someone that's playing West Ham, like United, wouldn't be a bad shout.
People are heading for United anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So. The week after Brentford, it's not a bad shout. But again, I don't know, because they don't double. Are you wanting to add?
Well, unfortunately, I might be going sort of like Tony to Isak / Wilson then, right? So
Palace, on the other hand, as well. Like if you decided to punt it, go for it. But just the lack of doubles means that there's no interest there really. But they've done so well, and they're creating chances, and their attacking flair players are good. Other than go on, do your once a month Zaha sales pitch if you want.
Do you know when Wilfried Zaha last scored a Premier League goal prior to Saturday?
Probably against West Ham.
It was.
Yeah. I think it was 3. Was it? What was the final score then? 3-2? I can't remember now.
Lose 2-1 at home, wasn't it? Just before the World Cup, which is staggering actually. I know he's had injury problems, that he's gone that long without scoring. You must remember with Palace, you've got 4 good fixtures left. You've got Tottenham away, you've got Fulham away in 37, and it's Fulham now probably almost definitely without Tim Ream and Andreas Pereira due to injuries. And yes, Marco Silva, you probably are on the beach, and you could say Palace are as well, but they've got a little bit of momentum going. Bournemouth and Forest as 2 home games. Nobody right now owns Wilfried Zaha. This is exactly the sort of thing I'm talking about. Can Wilfried Zaha, for example, Nico's fucking laughing at me. I'm just using him as an example, right? But could Zaha outscore Grealish for the rest of this season with those fixtures? Because, but Grealish has got an extra fixture. He probably hasn't, has he? Somewhere along the line.
You're right. He'll get rested one game.
Whereas Wilf will play. Now, one downside to Wilf, we saw it at the weekend, was Eze took the penalty.
Yeah, and I think if you were going to do it, I'd feel more comfortable. Unless money's no object, go 5.5 with Eze over Zaha. Because Zaha, at any moment, pick up a knock and he's then out for another 2 games.
If you buy a Palace player, if you commit to it at this period, and I really think they should be near the top of the agenda, and just the offensive players, I think, at this stage, they should be near the top of the agenda if you want to look for a different. Wilf is the one I'd go for. What you have to bear in mind is, because they finished with, say, I think it's Forest at home's the last one, isn't it, right? If he goes in, he ain't coming out, all right? So you got to spend all summer looking at Wilfried Zaha in your FPL team till the game relaunches, right? And you have to bear that sort of thing in mind. Honestly, at this stage, if I was to punt it, if the money doesn't matter, I'd go Zaha over Eze at this stage. I'd punt that. There's a defensive issue, which is also relevant for some of the games coming up as well, in the sense that, obviously, as you would mention, they conceded all 3 goals from corners. And this is a problem that Palace have had for a really long time, defending corners. And the fact that Hodgson's come back, it's not killed the problem, because Hodgson was part of that problem previously, even before Patrick Vieira came into the football club. And Tottenham are quite good at offensive set plays, and I just factor that in for the weekend for the likes of Kane, etc. For yourselves, Serge, the loss of Zuma, I would suggest, is probably a pretty big
problem. And I would have suggested that we might switch to back 5 against City anyway. So now I think it wouldn't surprise me if it's a Ged on the left, a Bonner in the middle, Kehrer on the right, so far Emerson.
Yeah, well, Emerson and Fornal started this one. They were both hooked at half time. Yeah. I mean, I know all your goals from set plays, but you were partly responsible for some of the stuff happening at the other end, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Souček on Schlupp's goal.
Mistakes, man. But, yeah. Disappointing, I think, but...
Any love for... I think the problem in terms of punting West Ham... and I don't think, although forget City from an FPL perspective, United, then what? Brentford away, Leeds and Leicester.
Last 2 are Leeds and Leicester.
So it's okay, I think, particularly for an offensive one. The problem is, if you went to gamble West Ham one at the moment, like, because of the European situation, like, say you did go to the Etihad and pulled off a shock win, your league season's finished, isn't it?
Then
if
it's
you
done.
Did pull it off,
We're
exactly.
Safe. Yeah.
What would that take? 37?
37.
I can't see 3 of them teams at the bottom getting to 37.
No chance.
Can't see it. So that would put you safe, and then that makes picking a West Ham player really ugly. It's ugly anyway.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. No. I wouldn't do it. Like, okay, let me give you a question, simple question, because they're very similar price. I think Bowen's more. Bowen or Zaha?
At this minute in time?
Yeah.
Zaha comfortably.
Exactly, and I agree with you, and I'm Mr... what are you saying, fuck me for, Zaha guy, right? I'm not Mr. Zaha, but I would pick Zaha over Bowen right now. And Bowen's probably the best West Ham asset you could go for. So that says it all, right? Talking about these teams below us that shit of the bed. Nottingham Forest 1, Brentford 2, Nottingham Forest 1. I mean, they wouldn't have expected to get anything away at the G-Tech Arena or G-Tech Stadium. What's it? Arena? Stadium? G-Tech?
G-Tech Community something, isn't it?
But they had a lead.
They did, yeah.
So when you go up in a game, you feel like, okay, now we've got a chance. And
well, 1-0 up with 10 minutes to go.
Yeah.
So weren't helped by the fact that Danilo, who'd scored in the last couple, obviously scored against Brighton last week as well, couldn't complete the game. And Forest had used their free substitution windows. So they had to finish the end of the game with 10 men. Unfortunately, he did try and carry on. He just couldn't. It was a passenger. So they finished the game with 10 men, and Brentford have obviously won it there. I mean, talk about fine margins. Tony's free kick, he's pushed by Navas onto the post and then hits Navas again and goes in. It probably is going in, but I tell you what, if it had gone down as an own goal, even as a Tony owner, I wouldn't have complained, to be totally honest. And De Silva's one, he wraps it in and it comes off the inside of that same post. So fine margins on Forest losing here.
Been to measure these goals? Just make sure they're regulation size.
I would say so. They stayed with a back 3. There was some doubts about Niakate that we spoke about on Friday. He did play. Joe Worrell played in the back 3 as well. So the long throws still exist for Nottingham Forest. I haven't looked into how many long throws there were in this game, or how long the ball was in play, but I don't really care. Danilo will be a miss for Forest if he's out. Awoniyi played as well. And interestingly for Forest, though, despite this being obviously very, very disappointing, I think more important for them at this weekend was Leeds losing and neither Leicester or Everton winning last night, because actually it's flipped. And I spoke about this with Mark Southerns when he come on COTC prior to blank game week 32. And what we actually said was that probably more important for Forest over this period of the Liverpool, Brighton and Brentford games, it was more important that they, at the end of it, they didn't find themselves adrift. And they're not. They're absolutely in the running, and they've now got the best fixture going into this game week with Southampton at home. Johnson, Gibbs-White Awoniyi, these are the sort of ones where, again, if you're looking for a differential and a team that's got something to play for, I'm not saying they're better than Brighton assets or anything like that, but if you're looking for something differential, suddenly it's flipped, where Forest fixtures of the 4 at the bottom probably look the best. Johnson, the only thing I'd say with Johnson is it depends how they set up in terms of whether he's a promising asset or not. A lot of his returns, I think, very high proportion have been in home games, and that's what's to come next. So he'd probably still be the one to punt if you wanted to do it. There's also a very bizarre statistic on the other team with Ivan Toney at the moment. Last 14 games, Suj, do you know what it is?
Yeah. Goal, no goal. Goal, no goal. Or return.
You don't have to say that 7 times over.
Nah.
But it's exactly that.
On off.
Goal, blank, goal, blank, goal, blank. 7 times over, last 14 games. So he blanks at Liverpool this weekend. And he scores against you in game week 36.
No problem at all. I don't own him in any fantasy format at the moment. I can see a situation now, is it's bad for like, so, imagine if West Ham and Leicester get to a situation on the last day of the season where a draw guarantees both Premier League safety. Put your money on that, mate.
Are you mad? I don't think if Leicester played for a 0-0, they couldn't accomplish it if they tried.
We'll talk about them in a
you
bit.
could. I don't think they could. No chance, mate. It's score an own goal with a back pass or something, mate.
Reminds me of the story. Who said that story about Newcastle when they were playing no opponents under?
Was it Steve Howe? That story, wasn't it?
Yeah.
The Aussie Ardiles. Had set them up to play against mannequins. And they passed it back to the goalkeeper. And
shadow play.
He was picking up his water bottle out the goal. So they scored an own goal against mannequins.
Yeah, let's see. But that's the fact that there's some games between these bottom 6 and 7 now at the end of the season means that, definitely 36, 37 is enough. Shame for Forest.
Brentford have some tough fixtures left. They've still got to play Liverpool, Manchester City, Tottenham away and yourselves at home. They've obviously gone back 4 for this one. I imagine it will probably be back 5 at Anfield this coming weekend in the 5:30 kickoff.
Yeah.
Tony is now on 20 Premier League goals.
It's a very good season. Very good season.
Consistent as. However, if I told you now he was going to get 2 goals in the next 4 games, would you go and buy him?
I think it's gone.
You wouldn't, would you?
Because I want Isak and Wilson and Haaland.
This is the thing now. You're not looking for consistency at this stage now. Particularly if you do invest in a team that hasn't got doubles, you're not looking for 1 return a week, I don't think. You're looking for the explosiveness to go in there. And it's probably not there with the fixtures he's got left. It's very difficult to he scored a hat-trick against West Ham. I know you've lost 4-3 this weekend, for example, but you probably don't. Liverpool away this weekend, do you expect anything?
If he goes up against VVD, probably.
Well, maybe. We'll talk about them in a bit, yeah. But it'd only be Tony. I think those who've got Raya probably bench most weeks of what's left. If you're a Rico Henry owner and started him this weekend, 0-pointer. 59th minute sub and a yellow card, goal conceded. You'd have right fancied that. People would have been uncomfortable leaving someone like that on the bench this week. 0-pointer. Damsgaard started in midfield, but not a consideration for FPL. So let's talk about my second favourite team in the league.
Well, I mean, what do we do now? Like, we're just going to say same shit week in, week out. Brighton are amazing. They score loads of goals.
They lost to
They
Forest
play good
last
football.
week.
A little blip. They were just a bit upset. They were sulking after the FA Cup semi. And then they showed us what they're made of. Well, their B team showed us showed Wolves what they were made of. It was straight slapping. They're too good. They create too many chances. They score shitloads of goals, and they've got depth, and they've got loads of young players coming through. Pick 3. If you don't have 3 for their doubles, if you don't have 3 now, you don't know what you're FPLing, to be honest with you. Steele's perfect because of his price. Any of the midfielders, fine. Go with a Welbeck or an Enciso or whatever if you fancy a little bit of fun. But just have 3, and they're all good, and you never know which one's going to pop off. And if you were Roberto De Zerbi and you got offered a bigger job, I don't know, it's the next season's opportunity to do something like, I won't go so far as to say do a Leicester.
I'm not talking about him anymore. I'm so tired of it.
I wouldn't go so far as to say do a Leicester because that is a very, very crazy feat.
I've told you that I think they could.
If there's ever another team since then that could do it, It's these.
The problem's going to be for them in the summer, in seriousness, off FPL for a minute. I mean, yeah, McAllister we think is almost definitely going to leave, it seems like. Caicedo could obviously well go. There's obviously interest in Evan Ferguson. Mitoma March will probably hang around, but they've obviously had Levi Colwill on loan. He's going to go back to Chelsea. Whether Brighton buy him permanently, there's talk of, say, Liverpool and City being linked to him, for example. He's not even in the team at the moment anyway. But there's a number that could obviously move. Sanchez will probably move on. I wouldn't be surprised. If De Zerbi's going to him in the summer, still his first choice. I mean, he'd walk in the Tottenham team, for example, and there's a few others who are more established, bigger clubs than Brighton in the league, who Robert Sanchez would walk into their team, for example. So I wouldn't be surprised if he ended up at a United, Chelsea or Tottenham in the summer. Same goes for David Raya at Brentford. There's some notes from this, though, in the sense that it has complicated matters for Brighton assets a little bit. There are certain ones it hasn't complicated. So for Steele, he started against Forest, started at the weekend. I think you'd be very, very comfortable with that now. He's up to 4.0, so he's still not a price that's not buyable. And any return you get at that value is net positive, basically. But the selection at the weekend has caused a few concerns. It also might be a setback for Joel Veltman. The setback knock-on for Joel Veltman, of course, knock-ons to Alexis McAllister. Because it might be that Pascal Gross, who scored 2 great goals at the weekend, might end up back at right back again, which means McAllister playing deeper. McAllister, we know, wants to play at 10. That was a big conversation that he and De Zerbi had after McAllister came back from the World Cup. But needs must, and the form of Julio Enciso certainly indicates that Brighton have another offensive player who's very much worth considering. What is he, 4.6 forward? I mean,
I can't comparing him versus Ferguson, but
I can't guarantee you the starts. Ferguson is close to fitness, and Welbeck is probably the most assured, but they won't take chances on him. So it's not a problem this week. So they play United Thursday, Everton Monday, but then in 36, obviously they play at the weekend. Then it's Newcastle Thursday. Then they play Southampton Sunday. So like between the second game of 36 and the first game of 37. Then the second game of 37 3 days later. Does Danny Welbeck play all those? No. But is he the sort of one that you should be looking at as a differential? Yes. Arguably that is better to look at. I haven't got 3 Brighton. I'm not locked into Mitoma, March and Steele or Estupiñán, for example. Okay, I can go and buy Welbeck. That's probably a better move as a differential right now than going to Wilfried Zaha, for example. But you won't get the full complement of games. You'd have to accept that. Enciso played on the left, and he was very good and very lively. Now, I don't think Mitoma owners should be concerned about that at all, but it certainly gives Brighton a different option in a wide area that they may not have had. A lot of Brighton's attacks went down that left-hand side, and he was very good during this game, which meant that Solly March wasn't that involved at the top end. You cannot believe that he started. I think he went off at 5-0 and had nothing involvement in that, considering the way he's played this season. He was like the one who was constantly ticking over every week, wasn't it? They've scored once, March assisted. They've scored once, March assisted. For them 3 players not to get anything. I think even McAllister and Mitoma got 35 minutes. You expect them to get something at that stage. Well, nothing.
They were 6 up by then, weren't they? Or were they 5 up by then?
They were 5 up when McAllister and Mitoma came on.
Yeah. I did see that and think, there's got to be something in it.
I think at this stage, if I only had 2... and my priority was going to third Brighton, that's exactly the sort of one where I think I'd be looking for the differential right now. And I'd be looking at Welbeck or Enciso, subject to what you want out of it. Can I guarantee you regular starts for Enciso? No. But of course it is value as well. If you realise, oh shit, this is a mistake, then you don't necessarily have to play him.
At that point, I'd rather...
There were 9 good assets from Brighton, I would say. There were 9.
Than Enciso, for example.
That's fine.
Just it's a safer pick.
You've got Steele, Duncan, Estupiñán defensively.
Yeah.
I don't think Veltman we think's out. Webster and Colwill could flip. They're not worth considering. Ahead of that, you've got the three M's that are popular: McAllister, Mitoma, and March. And Ferguson is close to fitness, and Enciso and Welbeck are all worth considering. There's 9 Brighton assets you consider. So when we say everyone's got the same team, pick some different players from them.
Yep.
Is one way of certainly of looking at it. For Wolves, this was a disaster. And I'm not going to talk about them too much because Bradley Parker's got the honour of being on Clash of Correspondents this week. But yeah.
But it can happen to anyone there.
Direct debits are getting set up all across this league, aren't they?
But look, it can happen to anyone at Brighton. It can happen to... We lost there 4-0. And then this happens at 6. We lose 5-1 to Newcastle. You guys ship 6. Suddenly you're like, some of these... It's not as bad. These are good teams that can do it to anyone. Brighton, Newcastle at the moment.
Yeah.
So,
should say, just briefly, obviously Billy Gilmore played. Not an FPL consideration, but apparently he was great.
And disappeared off.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's worth mentioning to say that he played very, very well at the weekend.
Let's talk about the Saturday game, Sunday games. Feels like we had a couple of Friday and Saturday.
He
Sunday.
could, of course, obviously play again with, say, Caicedo and McAllister still stays high, even if Veltman's out, is another possibility. He has become a bit blurred.
Yeah. Bournemouth 4, Leeds 1. I mean, Leeds are fuming at the moment. I think there's a bit of kicking off about the players not clapping their away fans and stuff like that.
No, there was an incident in a hotel which looks really, really bad. And they're not the first club to be shown it recently. I would give some defence to the players in the sense I think they're probably told ignore everyone. Like, they go into the game, I think it's like heads down, get yourself in zone, but it doesn't cost anything just to wave. That's all you have to do. Just when you got little kids stand there, it just looked bad. Anyway, they're not the only club that's been caught out with that recently. I take it you've heard the rumours this morning, Serge?
Javier Gracia's going to get fired?
Well, to be honest with you, I think that was probably an inevitability, in all honesty. But Matt Lawton from The Times was breaking the news about an hour ago from when we're recording. Sam Allardyce likely to be appointed later today.
Okay.
Reaction? Because Sush lives under a rock, so let's see what it is.
It's too late. When you look at their next fixtures for Leeds, there's only one that I can see them picking up any points in.
Which one's that?
Against us. But actually, against you last
season
might be all right. But it might be too late by then, mate.
Tottenham could well say. To be honest with you, in seriousness...
Next two, they're not getting nothing.
It's City away, isn't it?
Newcastle.
I think they'd probably have to score 4 or 5 to beat Newcastle. It might be the same at the Etihad. To be honest, the Etihad at the weekend, you made a case to say it's damage limitation on goal difference. What's their goal difference like against the others, Suj? But the last two, West Ham away, obviously if you have got European commitments, you definitely do the Thursday before, you might be celebrating, you might be kind of disappointed, you don't know what the vibe will be.
Yeah, we might need to win to stay up.
And listen, if Leeds need to beat Dr. Tottenham in game week 38, don't rule it out, right?
Forest and Southampton have got a much shitter goal difference. It's 8.
I think let's with respect,
but Everton and Leicester are
Southampton going to have to win all 4 games to stay up anyway, right? Yeah, so let's rule them out at the moment. Are they worse than the others?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. They are.
Yeah. No, Everton and Forest are worse.
Everton and Forest are worse. What's the difference though?
So Leicester at the moment are minus 13.
Yeah.
Then you got Leeds at minus 24.
Yeah.
Then Everton are minus 25. Forest are minus 32.
But that's what I'm saying. If they take a slapping at the weekend, they could end up being worse off than Everton. 11 points with Everton.
Everton 29. Leeds and Forest are both 30.
Right. Okay.
And then we're 34.
Okay. Interesting. So yeah, I mean, I think Leeds fans would probably agree with that at the moment. It's not meant disrespectfully. Probably do look at Man City away as damage limitation at the weekend and get something, get some positive vibes. I wonder if they'll be calling him Sam Allardyce to make themselves feel better. That's some come down from having Marcelo Bielsa only 15 months or so.
Yeah, it feels like they've not found a new identity that's worked yet.
I don't want to be a told you so on Jesse Marsch. But I said that I thought it was a mistake.
Yeah, he should have stayed.
The results weren't good enough. I get it, but I still held the belief all the way through that they would stay up with him. And right now, I didn't watch the game on Sunday, but I'd said to you, I'd watched the previous 3 and was really unimpressed with them. What's their identity? What are they? And actually, in fairness, on Sunday, they looked like they had a good few chances, particularly at 0-0 quite early on. But defensively...
You said something about Bournemouth when we beat them 4-0. the previous 2 away wins against Leicester and Tottenham said maybe more about Leicester and Tottenham than maybe Bournemouth. I thought they played okay against us. Their football was defensively they were shit, but their football was okay. They've then gone and won the next 2.
6 out of 9. No, fair
but
play
also they were against 2 shit teams in Southampton and Leeds. So they're getting the job done. If the other teams are not performing or not playing well, Bournemouth are getting the job done. Now, we played well against them, so it was a difficult game. But if you're not at it against Bournemouth, I think they can. They're all right. You know, they're a threat in any game. Now, Chelsea, who are they? We have no idea. Palace and Man United are going to be tough, and then Everton last day of the season. I think they're just going to coast out and do all right, Bournemouth, between now and the end of the season. Not buying any of their assets. But,
I'll tell you what, I'd rather buy Dom Solanke than any Leeds player at the moment. Let me put it that way, despite a potential bounce that might be incoming with Big Sam. Look, Sam knows how to get teams out of this. We know that. But it's also worth saying that Sam's most recent spell at West Brom was not good.
No.
At all. And I personally think that over the last few years, the quality of the Premier League tactically, both on and off the ball, has gone to a whole different level where, you know, teams like Palace can mug you off. You know, they're much better. Palace from now would have probably finished certainly top half 6-7 years ago, I think. The quality of teams in the upper echelons of the bottom half, quality-wise, are going up.
Yeah,
they can
massively
give you a problem at any stage. And that's what makes, for the likes of Leeds, Everton, Forest and Leicester, or Everton, whichever one I didn't mention, finding where the points are going to come looks really difficult, because all these teams, if they're playing any of them teams, they look like challenges. Leeds and Leicester both got to play West Ham, for example. And you look at them right now and go, I think West Ham probably win both of them, for example, despite the problems you had at the weekend. They switched to a back 3, Leeds, at the weekend. Christensen played right-sided centre-back. I don't know what he's doing on that 4th goal. That's absolutely terrible. There was a start for Nonso. It weren't helped by the fact that Cooper went off after just over half hour. I spoke recently about the fact that he came in for the Fulham game, and I think that was set up because he's got leadership qualities at the back. And Bournemouth did the opposite, actually switched to a back 4. Senesi came in and played with Kelly at centre-back. Stevens didn't come straight back in. Metham missed out with a minor injury. And Dango Atura played. You're in a bad spot when Jefferson Lerma's scoring his 2 goals per decade within about 5 minutes for each other. It came up, I was watching Fulham City, and it came up, didn't it? 1-0 Lerma, 2-0 Lerma. What? What's happened here? And unfortunately, on the second goal, there is another. It's Meslier goes for like a volleyball tip over, but palms it straight out to him. And yeah, they need to look at that, because he at the moment, he's so young looking anyway that he does stand out more. He looks shot for confidence, and that's shooting the confidence of those in front of him. So even though Joel Robles is probably no better, he should probably go in goal right now, to be honest. I'm probably more worried for them than the others.
Me too. Me too.
What I would say though as well is, I think, like for Forest and Everton, going down would be particularly bad. Forest, because of what they've done in the transfer market, and they have to completely restrip it and basically start again. For Everton, crisis.
Financial problems.
Leicester would probably come straight back. I think for Leeds, they're probably in a position that wouldn't be disastrous just to reset.
Let's talk about Fulham 1, Man City 2. Jesus is back. Gabriel Jesus 2.0 is back.
Don't be silly. Alvarez's goal per minutes ratio is much better.
Is it? It wouldn't surprise me. It's fucking ridiculous.
Oh, okay.
But if he has literally just stepped into the shoes of Gabriel Jesus, has never fucking gets any minutes, and when he does, gets loads of points and goals, and then we disappears, and we're just like, who is this guy? When I watched a reasonable amount of this, I'd say 30, 40 minutes, where it just frustrated me, because City coulda, shoulda been out of sight for 4 or 5 if they really wanted to. But you look at Alvarez, and I was like, is he possibly... we wouldn't call him the second best striker in the league. You got like Kane and all this behind Haaland, but he's up there as possibly in the top 5. What would he do at another team?
So in terms of returning, as in scoring in his starts, as a percentage, how many players do you think have scored per start more than Alvarez this season?
Per start. It's only got to be Haaland because Haaland's more than a goal per game.
Alvarez has scored in 61% of his starts.
Okay.
There's only one player that can better that.
Erling Haaland. Yeah. It has to be. I mean...
Well, Haaland hasn't scored in 100% of his
starts.
He's got hat-tricks and stuff. There are blanks in there. But as a percentage, 61% of his starts he's scored in. And obviously KDB wasn't around. The word is that KDB, we think, probably didn't train yesterday. That doesn't rule him out the West Ham game. And I do feel I do feel sympathy for those who particularly would have free-hitted De Bruyne in this week, because that was probably the one real differential against the wild card, was De Bruyne on free hit. I think wild carders had to think about Newcastle. Free hitters didn't. So you could afford to really cheap out the bench and probably just about squeeze him in. So I feel for you if he doesn't turn up at all on Wednesday night. But if he was out for the rest of the season, that's just go and get Alvarez, by the way, I think.
Yeah.
Forget
the only
whatever
problem
else is happening.
It's another forward slot.
Yeah, but you'd just have to go in.
And then you can only have one of Isak or Wilson, which is also fine.
If you've already got your complement of free City, say like you've got Stones, Grealish, Haaland, that's awkward, right? If you're like me sitting there with two and wanting to add the third, it just becomes obvious, just go and get him.
Go Grealish to Pereira or cheaper even, and go from Greenwood to Alvarez.
Yes, you could, but would you want to? It's a -4 as well, and it's over a very limited period. I think you'd need to hear that De Bruyne was out for the season, right? But this is a perfect case in point where you have to think, when we're looking for differentials at the moment, can you get to Alvarez? Such as a case example, can't really.
Choppers out there, mate.
Yeah,
we can hear helicopters outside. The police are coming to get us.
Yeah, me, you, or Nico? Would you reckon?
Nico for sure.
Why?
We're old and sensible. He's young, free, and crazy.
Okay, you heard it here first. I am very tempted by him, but I don't think I can get near him until 37.
Yeah, mate, he's the one that, like, everyone who plays FPL over the last few seasons will have had a Gabriel Jesus moment where you take a punt and he comes in and scores 3 goals or whatever, and you're like, yeah, it's one that I would love to, like you, because if it goes off, you feel really good. They taste really sweet, those points.
Yeah, very tempted to know that there will be minutes. Certainly if City could wrap up the title before 37 as well, would make him very interesting and possibly a very viable captaincy option, even remarkably, versus Haaland in 37 possibly, if we thought there was going to be a rest for, say, Haaland at home to Chelsea as an example, maybe. Is there a captaincy debate this week, Suj?
No.
Haaland at home to Leeds?
Yeah, no.
Okay, but it is at a stage where people feel the need to do something different.
Some people do.
What if he was unavailable?
I'd go with Grealish, probably.
They're going to Real Madrid on Tuesday. As I said, there's a possibility for those who can wait late, and we know not everyone has that luxury, that it's not beyond reason. Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, Tuesday, we'd said that the Leeds one was probably the one, if there's going to be rest for people, this is the one to be nervous about. What I do recommend that everybody has in mind is what their backup plan is. And that backup plan, what I mean by that is a lot of people are going to roll transfers this week. That's my plan, right? But I would certainly consider, when I want to roll this week, if I got word that Haaland's not playing, I know that Alvarez almost definitely is. It's got to go in for me, I think.
Agreed.
Under that circumstance, for me, who can get him? And then I would captain him as well, I think.
Agreed. I think I would as well, you know. Can't argue with that.
So what's the backup plan? Now, for a lot of other people, that you're not going to have that luxury. Would you consider, Serge, if you heard the word, taking Haaland out and bringing him back and doing it that way?
If he went out, probably wouldn't. Probably wouldn't. It's just booking in transfers that I don't want to book in.
Who would be your first sub this week? These are all relevant things to consider right now.
Maybe Isak.
As first sub this week?
Well, Isak at home to Arsenal versus March at home to Everton. Who are you going to pick?
Yeah, listen, if Saliba's not back for Arsenal players' sake, mate.
I mean, I'm not benching any of my 3 City against Leeds. Brentford at home for Liverpool might be the trickiest, because Brentford can be obtuse.
So, okay, let's have a wider captaincy debrief just briefly then. So, Salah at home to Brentford, Rashford away to West Ham.
That's decent.
These are the sort of alternatives. What would you go out of them two?
Rashford.
Really? Even with Mo at home?
Yeah, I just think Brentford are the masters of making your life difficult.
I always say with Haaland, pick your battles, right? Now, for me, if he's in the team at home to Leeds, I think it's quite scary in the sense that he might have the match ball by half-time kind of business, right? And they take him up. Thank you very much. You've won us the game. You can come off and rest for Tuesday. And that's probably the most likely scenario. But if he is out, if there was word late on, it's wide open for captaincy this week.
How are we in a scenario
wide open?
Where
but Harry,
the most likely
Harry
scenario
is
going to score a hat-trick in half-time? Maybe. You can tell us more about Harry when we get to your game and whether or not he would be a consideration.
He would be.
His ownership is dropping off quite a bit.
But he's a differential now. Kane's not. I see people saying, Kane's killing my ranking. No, he's not. No one's got Harry Kane anymore. Not many anyway, right? If you've still got Harry Kane at this stage, you're probably holding. Most listeners and viewers won't have Harry Kane at this stage. So he's a potential great differential. I'd consider that. If you're blocked by 3 City and you heard Haaland was out, I'd definitely consider going Haaland to Kane.
Let's talk about Man United, Aston Villa, 1-0, home win, comfortable. I think now it's really looking like the top 4 is kind of locked off. The gap between Liverpool and United's getting a bit bigger. It's 7 points now, isn't it?
Top 4's finished.
Yeah, so they still need to keep plugging away. But Bruno Fernandes in amongst the points with his goal, Rashford with an assist.
Yeah, he played...
Clean sheet points, decent for FPL owners.
Fernandes played basically to the right of the front 3. There's a few interesting things. I didn't watch a lot of this, but I've seen quite a bit of both teams recently, and there was a few things flagged on the highlights that have stood out from games I've watched these two teams anyway. I wanted to highlight. One is Villa and this aggressive nature that they have. They're very much transitioned to really move Alex Moreno high and bring Ramsey inside, where they kind of moved to kind of a 3-2-5 in possession. It's quite adventurous. They also very much play with a high line. And United had near misses where they were getting in behind. And eventually, one goal kick from Martinez gets headed on and Rashford's in behind. And really, that shouldn't happen. But it's because Villa are being adventurous. Why do I mention this? Well, again, talking about differentials, another player I might get onto who suddenly looks a little bit better recently, plays for Tottenham, called Heung-min Son, who scored a hat-trick at Villa Park last season and may have some joy. It also means Kane might also have some joy in that fixture in game week 36. I'm pretty sure Villa will beat us, by the way, but we might also have some joy going forward. It could be a car crash game, Villa-Tottenham game week 36. The other thing that really stood out was the aggressiveness of Luke Shaw. So he's playing left-sided centre-back at the moment, and in the cup semi against Brighton, he was very much stepping out into man-to-man to go tight with someone. And against Villa, kind of did that against Emi Buendia by the looks of it as well, which essentially means if you can play around that, you will get in behind Manchester United. But it's a very brave and aggressive thing that Ten Hag's doing with Luke Shaw at the moment. What it also means is that the likes of Christian Eriksen can play a little bit higher, and he did in this fixture as well. So a few interesting little tactical bits on that. From an FPL perspective, I still think Lindelof is the best United one to get. It's 4.1.
Played well by all reports.
Cleared one off the line. A little bit unlucky not to be in the bonus in comparison to others, to be honest. But I think that at 4.1 is fine. When you look at United's fixtures of what's left and some of the opponents they've got to play, there could be a few clean sheets in there. So you've got West Ham this weekend, who it falls right in the middle of, obviously, City, and then you've got European semi-final next week. So it's certainly a challenge for West Ham. Could United go to West Ham, keep clean sheet? Yes, I intend to play Luke Shaw, who I own in that fixture. Yeah. But the games afterwards, Wolves at home, Chelsea at home, Bournemouth away, Fulham at home. There could be more there. And it might be that, for me, the third United asset does end up being a Lindelof. Getting a second Manchester United defender might even be what he ended up doing, for example. That sort of move as well, if I went to say Trent to Lindelof in 37, might allow me to smash in Kane as well for the last couple, possibly, as a differential. So, yeah, there could be clean sheets on the go still for United. Villa, the moment's probably passed. Ollie Watkins is being sold by many. Wolves away, Tottenham at home next two are not bad at all.
Yeah, if you're having to hold him and play him, it's not a problem.
What I would also say for Villa is Villa will really be trying to qualify for Europe. It's probably going to come down between Tottenham and Villa for 7th, which will get you in the Conference League, subject to what Brighton do in some of their more difficult games. But if Brighton do well, Brighton will finish in the top 6. Villa's fixtures across all 4 are probably a little bit more difficult, but Villa also have to play Tottenham in 36. The difference between the two clubs is Tottenham probably couldn't give a toss whether they do or they don't. Villa will really want to do it, and you should bear that in mind. Villa aren't on the beach or anything like that. That's the first time they haven't scored under Emery at the weekend. And they should have. Like I said, there was a few cleared off the line and stuff. Not a terrible result for Villa. Good result for United. Just closed the door a little bit. How many are there clear of Liverpool?
7, I think.
Played the same.
No, Liverpool have games. United have a game in hand on Liverpool now, and it is 7.
Yeah, I can't. Even if United lost at Brighton and Liverpool beat Fulham and Brentford, what the difference would be 1 with United going to yourselves, but they'd have 2 in hand, wouldn't they? Still,
it's not going to happen.
No, I can't see Liverpool catching that, to be totally honest.
And Newcastle even further ahead with a 3-1 win over Southampton puts a nail in the coffin of Southampton. They're a further 2 points ahead. You talked about Ivan Toney, 20 goals this season. Callum Wilson's up to 15, and he's played like nearly half the minutes of Ivan Toney. He's played 1,500 minutes versus Toney's 2,000.
Callum Wilson scored 8 goals in April.
It's mad. He
started
off the bench.
He started 2 games.
Exactly. And I kind of think sometimes, like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer had this super sub kind of tag that was attached to him. The more that Callum Wilson keeps coming off in the last half an hour and scoring a goal or 2, Isak softens him up and he comes on. It might be their 1-2 punch tactic that they do. Having said that, Eddie Howe did say Isak played really well on the left when he was on the left as well. They got some options there now at Newcastle. I can see why a lot of people are thinking for 36, sod the confusion, just get both.
It could be, yeah. And one factor that really might add to that is Sean Longstaff's gone for a scan on a foot injury, which if he's in the clear, he could play against Arsenal on Sunday. If there's a fracture or anything, his season's probably over. And certainly what I would say about that is that would make Joel Linton and Willock far less attractive as kind of differential punts, who this time last week probably were looking quite attractive to people after the 6-1 against Tottenham. That's the same midfield 3 with obviously Gomeres in the middle that lost badly at Villa. And I think if they've got to play those 3, there'll be a consciousness in terms of more high-speed counter-attacking with potentially Isak playing in a wider role. Anthony Gordon started, was withdrawn. He had chances himself in the first half. It's worth saying Newcastle had a massive XG in this game. When he was withdrawn, Isak obviously went into a wider area. Still remains threatening. He assisted one of the goals and also would have probably had an assist, although it would have been debatable for another one that was disallowed.
The offside one.
As well. So still heavily involved. I wouldn't look at Isak and think, oh shit, he can't return if he's playing out wide. But if we had the information to believe that's what was going to happen, and let's be honest, we're only going to have the Arsenal game to judge this, it would make Wilson the more interesting of the 2, I think.
Yeah, and there's the most price differential now. I mean, Isak's still 6.9.
They're both
cheap.
Brilliant prices. If you look
7.
at someone like me who's got Toney and Watkins, I could flip in both, couldn't I?
Yeah.
But I can't because I've got Botman.
That was getting rid of Botman and having the option of the third was a good move. The assist this week makes it look
I'd have to consider something like that. Yeah, to think, is that the right play when 36? If I roll this week, come into 36 and go, right, yeah, flip Watkins and Toney for the 2 of them and then go early for the -4 Botman to like Lindelof rather than having to take a -4 the following week, for example, which I wouldn't if I only made one transfer in 36. A little bit of a cute debate. Right now, it feels like having two offensive ones would be more interesting. I'd certainly say for those who was kind of planning a Joel Linton or Willock move, like caution. There's the fact that they play Leeds in that first game of 36.
Yeah.
With a 6-day break and then 5 days to Brighton. That's the point with 36 for Newcastle as well. If you look at Brighton's 36-37, take players like Welbeck. Danny Welbeck is not playing 4 games across 36-37. He might still do very, very well. But in the one that matters most for Newcastle, the 36 double, the spacing before and afterwards means that there's every chance they would pick the same team. Plus as well, if Brighton did perform well in some of their games beforehand and Newcastle did slip for whatever reason, they might still be looking at Brighton thinking, fucking hell, these have got games in hand. This is really important. So I think Newcastle would be very close to their strongest team in both of those games in 36. Then the rotation maybe comes against Leicester in 37, but that's a Monday night as well. And it's their last home game, so they'll want to go strong on that. So, yeah, the spacing is good for Newcastle if you want to invest. So that's the big debate for me is it going to be Wilson or Isak or both when 36 comes around? And I think the information is more important rather than making that decision now to go, yeah, I could get one of them in for Tony this week and that's possibly a little bit better and give myself more of a selection headache. I think I've got to wait. Similarly, the idea of removing a Botman, or it might even be Trippier for other people, because let's be honest, the returns aren't there at the moment. And the closer it gets to the end of the season, less the value matters. Because once you sell, you probably aren't buying back, right? And it's certainly a case for those who've got double Newcastle defensive to be considering double offensive, I think, with what's to come.
Yeah.
For Saints, just a brief note on them. They played Liang Cao at right back, which they had done and had some success with under Nathan Jones actually a little bit earlier in the season. So Carl Walker-Peters played left back. Romain Perraud is out for the season. If that's the case, that is the case. It probably means Walker-Peters stays at left back. Saints will be much more vulnerable on that other side. So teams coming up, I think teams who have defensive players from the left potentially will do very well against them for the rest of the season. They obviously go to Forest Monday night. It could be Gibbs White zone, maybe, but he tends not to drift out as far wide as, say, Johnson does on the other side. What have Saints got left afterwards?
Defeats.
No doubt, but who've they got?
They haven't won a game in 10, mate.
Jesus.
Forest, Fulham, Brighton, Liverpool.
So Matoma, when that game comes round in 37, admittedly, though, that falls in between Newcastle Thursday, Southampton Sunday, City Wednesday. Just say Fulham as well. Solomon as a differential. So Fulham will finish with Southampton, Palace and United. It's not too bad. If Solomon ends up playing on the left because Pereira's out now, that might be dependent on Williams' fitness as well. And it was the other one for Saints.
You're asking me again. I just said them. It was Forest, Fulham, Brighton, Liverpool.
Oh, Liverpool. There you go. Last day punt.
Luis Diaz. Get in there, son. Segue. And a nice smooth segue. Unlike a Diogo Jota boot to the head. Which game was Trent's cheeky little chicken wing elbow? Was it Leeds or was it Forest? The assist where he handballed.
Oh, at Leeds.
Was it Leeds, right?
The chicken wing elbow.
It was a chicken wing elbow, wasn't it? On the YouTube. Come for me, Liverpool fans. Let's do it. But you've got that Trent
stop. Please
elbow.
don't. You can't upset Liverpool fans. Do you not know the rules?
Thiago's handball, Jota's boot in the head, and you ain't getting top four. Listen, it's a run though where it's like I haven't heard a single person say Jota's boot to the head wasn't red. Apart from maybe there's Liverpool fans or maybe Klopp.
Have you asked my opinion yet?
And I don't need to. And also, I think that it should be part of the law of this country that if you get in someone's face and shout at them, it's acceptable to be punched in the face. If someone gets in my face and shouts at me, I think I'm within my rights to punch them.
So if the fourth official I presume you're aiming this at Jurgen Klopp here.
Yeah.
If the fourth official had punched him in the face.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
Let's get that put in as a rule.
Yeah. If you're going to give it, Yeah, doesn't matter where you are in life. If you're gonna give it, you got to be willing to fight. This is my philosophy now. Is if someone was shouting at me,
this is why I don't give it.
Yeah, if someone's being mouthy or shouting or whatever,
my missus
can confirm.
My first
question is, am I willing to fight this person? And are they willing to fight me? Like, if someone just shouts at me in the street, I'm like, are we going to fight? Because if we're not going to fight, then just shut up and go away. Because what's the point? You're just shouting at me for what reason? If you're willing to take it all the way and fight,
okay,
then cool, let's go.
You had a coffee this morning?
Yeah, I had a couple. Jurgen Klopp, if he's willing to give it like that, he's got to be willing to accept that they should be able to punch him in the face.
If Jurgen Klopp did that to you...
Not just Jurgen Klopp, anyone.
If Jurgen Klopp did that to you, what's happening, boss?
A simple question. Should we fight about this? If you're not willing to fight me, then shut the fuck up and take your ball and go home. But if you're willing to fight, let's go. Simple, right? If you're willing to give it with your mouth that much, you've got to be willing to fight someone. Is my point of view on life in general. Don't you think, Nico? If someone's going to give it to you, but then as soon as you're like, let's go, let's fight then. If you're really that mad and you really want to shout that much, well then let's go because we disagree. And if it's like, oh no, well then you better just shut the fuck up. So anyway, he needs to learn to either there needs to be a fight, or he needs to just learn to shut the fuck up, Jurgen Klopp, to be honest with you, because he's taking the
You're going to have to carry on talking while I piss myself here, mate.
I'd love to see it one day. I'd love to see it. They just get irritated and they just lamp him. That's it. Game over.
What would happen, though, if you shouted in someone's face and they backed away and pulled their hamstring while they did it?
Idiot. But, listen, first 15 minutes, thinking, what? Like, you can't keep starting. You just can't keep starting games like this.
Can I just say on the Jota red card, because that's what seemed to spill from. And I've spoken about Jurgen Klopp and some of the things he said sometimes is weird. Although I didn't like what some of the things Ryan Mason said after the game either, to be honest. Oliver Skipp was lucky not to be sent off in the first half, which doesn't make as much of a story. Luis Diaz has obviously recovered from a bad injury and very nearly could have had another one there. So he got away with it because he got a bit of the ball, but if that had been a red card, I couldn't have complained it.
Yeah.
On the Jota one, what I'd say about it, which is quite interesting, I've seen people comparing it to the Haaland one against Palace right early in the season. They're different. They're different because Haaland tries to toe the ball upwards, whereas Jota comes in, studs right sideways at him. What's interesting about it is people talk about Skipp ducking his head, and that's all fine, and I don't disagree with that. If Jota had caught him in the chest, he'd got sent off.
It's crazy.
That's interesting, that, isn't it?
Yeah. For
me, if Jota had caught him in the groin, get sent off.
The reason Jota...
It's the action of the tackle.
Yeah. And he himself was being a bit of a pussy about it. You should put your head in, mate.
Are you okay, Suj?
No, I'm a bit annoyed with Liverpool, to be honest with you.
Oh, did they beat you last week?
Yeah. Listen, all this bitterness, Liverpool fans, is because of what happened at London Stadium a week ago. I'm just using Tottenham as my conduit to get it out. But he could have gone with his head. And if he'd gone with his head in a clash of heads, there's no red card.
If you go studs first, gone with your foot facing outwards, it's difficult to explain the audio, but pushing outwards with studs showing, it doesn't really matter where you make contact, you're liable to go. The only way you get down that is actually if you come down on top of someone's foot. Is the only way really you're getting away with that. So, yeah, listen, whatever, doesn't matter.
Rant over and apologies. I love you all, actually.
The game. So, can you imagine what I'm thinking 5 minutes in, mate? 2-0 down.
Here we go again.
I mean, literally, I'm watching the TV and laughing because what else was there to do? Then it goes 3-0 and, Christian Romero. Christian Romero, once again, I said on Friday, depending on your viewpoint from the Man United game, he was either like 9 out of 10 or a 4 out of 10 liability. Did you go, he won most of his challenges, he stepped out, he looked controlling on the ball, or do you go, oh my God, positionally, what are you doing? And that, unfortunately, here's the thing that I feel with Christian Romero, and this is important for Tottenham fans. If my team's ever going to challenge to win the league, can't carry someone like that. There's no way you're going to go 38 games and then be consistent for 38 games without costing you 3 or 4 in the middle. And he might be part of winning 34, but this is against Man City. 34 wins might not be enough. He's just lost his head there. Even on the second goal, He looks directly at Diaz. He's positioning. He's got him absolutely perfect. All he has to do is close that space at the near post. And for someone who's so aggressive, why doesn't he do it? I don't understand. His head's not there. And then the tackle for the third goal, laughably, and he says he won the ball, didn't he? Ben Davies tells him to shut up. He's like, shut up, mate. What have you just leave it. Literally, Ben Davies, if you watch it back, Ben Davies, shut up, mate. Like, he tells him, shut up. Like, what have you done? Ben Davies has been out for weeks, has come back in. I'm 3-0 down at Anfield, 15 minutes in, and I'm going to have to get the direct debit out to the fans. I've got to pay for this one this time. It was so bad.
Yeah.
Then something very, very weird happened. So when I say something weird happened, there was something tactical that happened. So Tottenham changed system at 3-0, and Kulusevski went in deeper, and Son basically went through the middle, basically. There was a little bit of imbalance where Kulusevski was still rightish and Son left. They kind of worked themselves in like a hexagon shaped, and it was a lot more controlling. Whereas, am I surprised that again Tottenham's midfield 2 got completely fucking dominated? No, of course I'm not. I see it every week. And from that point, we got a little bit better. And Liverpool, I mean, it got better primarily because Liverpool started making some mistakes. When I know Trent gets highlighted, Andy Robertson had a nightmare, mate. Terrible, really bad. And everyone's obviously made light of Van Dijk on the Tottenham's first goal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's sent for a hot dog and stuff. He's lucky he didn't do himself serious injury damage there, the way he kind of buckled over and stuff. His aura's just not the same. Konate had a very strange second half where aggressive in the tackle, like he was against Arsenal, quite often wins it, but he looks a bit shaky. And Romero, in the second half, it was the same thing. It was like on the ball, even actually defensive stuff in the penalty area, Suj, distribution on the ball, absolutely brilliant. But then something had happened, you'd be like, he's in the 10 position. What's he doing? He's just gone on the wonder and stuff. He's passed for Son, though. That's why he accepts a player like that, because he plays a pass for Son for the second goal, which gives us a genuine chance in the game that the two midfield players in front of him couldn't do. Son is definitely benefiting now from what we've seen over the last couple of games of having a more central role. Now, can I guarantee you that that's going to continue when, let's say, fixtures ease up? They're still difficult, but they are easier than Manchester United and Liverpool, let's say. Although Villa fans can debate that, it's fine. But Villa will play that high line, like I said. Him being more central, probably for the first time all season, he's now possibly interesting. I don't know how anybody would find the time to spend the money on him unless they were sitting there with Kevin De Bruyne in their squad, and he was ruled out, and then you're moving your third forward to Alvarez at the same time. But it's another one. Again, can you go, and so's Harry right now. Harry has a good historical record against Palace, and they're not good from defending set pieces, and a lot of what Tottenham do targeting on set pieces is aimed for Harry Kane. So despite the car crash start to this game, where I'm thinking again, okay, record defeat incoming definitely this time, and I really was thinking, there's no way at Anfield you're getting away from this. Liverpool didn't have another shot on target from the third goal to the fourth goal. And I can't even remember many near misses in that time. Yeah, I wouldn't say Liverpool didn't deserve to win because Tottenham's opening 25 minutes was that bad that didn't deserve anything from the game. But at least, again, we showed character and stuff to... I mean, you know, I was chatting them on in the living room in the last 10 minutes. Like, come on, you've actually given me something to support here.
Yep.
The equaliser goes in. Dickhead has to take his shirt off and start doing pigeon dances. Stop it, please. But I'm pleased that he's got the monkey off his back. Richarlison obviously finally got his first Premier League goal. It's not his fault what followed afterwards, which was Lucas Moura just put his foot through the ball. But it's easy to say in hindsight, if he gets the pass right, Romero plays forward as the best distributor in the team. And who knows? Because I'm thinking, all I was thinking after we equalised, one more attack, we might win this, right? Wasn't even thinking at that point that Liverpool were going to beat us. Because all the momentum had gone our way. And we had so many attacking players on the pitch. He's finished with like Danjuma and Lucas, obviously, as wing-backs, with Richarlison and Son up front, and Kane dropping in deeper again. Hallelujah. But yeah, there was some positives from that.
If you're looking for differentials, which we are Gakpo, Jota, and Diaz all like between 5 and 6.5% ownership. Nothing between them. Jota's a forward and he's a bit more expensive, closer to 9. The others are just under 8, and midfielders. Any thoughts around where you would want to differentiate with Liverpool? I mean, Trent is way high, 26% ownership. I'd actually check Robertson. I don't think he's as high because we've got him in our differential team, haven't we?
On what I saw, excuse me, on Sunday, I honestly, if I'd have wildcarded this with all 3 hit, honestly, I would have gone with Robertson. But on what I saw at the weekend and how easily it was again to hurt them,
he's expendable.
You'd rather have a second offensive one.
Pick one. Diaz or Gakpo from midfield?
I'd still love to tell you Nunes, but he's not playing, is he? He's probably Gakpo. Probably Gakpo over Jota. Diaz would be the one, but it takes a midfield spot.
Yeah,
but then we might want double Newcastle forwards next week, right? So, to be honest with you, the honest answer is if you were going to add Liverpool, you probably would have done it the week gone. So you're probably not looking to do it now. And if you are deciding, I do want to add a third Liverpool now, it's probably based on what's expendable. So if you've got the likes of Watkins and Tony and you're thinking they're expendable, that's going to push you to Jota, isn't it?
Yep.
If you're sitting there with Andreas Pereira and Sam Greenwood in your team and the money spared, then you're obviously open to either. If you want to move on a Jack Grealish, for example, you're more open to the idea of a Gakpo, aren't you? And I think you would over Diaz. Diaz, I can't see them running too hard, Suj. Like Diaz is not going to start against Fulham and Brentford, having started against Tottenham at the weekend. There's no way they're going to...
Well, it's all down to the traffic.
No way they're going to put him under that duress. No way. So you'd have that to factor in. So if Diaz started against Fulham, it'd be an absolute no-go for the Brentford game. I can't believe that they would make him start. Having not started for, 5 months? They make him start 3 times in 6 days when they have good alternatives. Yeah, they're not going to do that.
And Jota obviously came off the bench and was on the score sheet despite...
when he went through, one thing to say about that, when he obviously went through, I can't believe that anybody would have thought he won't score. As soon as it happened to him, he's scoring now. Yeah. He's a good little player, Diogo Jota, and definitely considerable. But I think for most people, it would have been by the Liverpool gone. For Tottenham, one little note as well. I'm not recommending the defensive guys, but Perisic worked his absolute socks off, and obviously he was unlucky not to get a return against United, and obviously assisted Kane for the first goal on Sunday. Probably the most pleasing thing of the whole game for me was Pedro Porro, I thought, had an excellent second half.
Okay. Really good.
Improved a lot defensively, positionally. It was like suddenly, I don't know if it was because the game was kind of dead.
Yeah.
But it was coming together for him. He loves to have a crack from long distance. That said, I'm not overly defending him because I repeat what I say to you every week. Look at that first goal. Yeah, if Emerson rolls on the pitch, it doesn't happen.
Last but not least, James, we've got to wrap up the Desmond 2-2 last night. Leicester 2, Everton 2.
What a game.
As good as could have hoped for from my point of view, to be honest with you, other than that fucking missed penalty from Maddison.
Literal. Have you got Maddison?
No. Sky.
Oh, yeah,
just
Sky.
But we are all
Tomorrow's
in the same
podcast.
boat there, so
yeah.
Other than that, 2-2 was the ultimate result that could hope for.
What a game. Did you watch it?
No.
It's one of the best games of the season, mate. It was absolutely brilliant.
I saw the shot count on SofaScore. It was
ridiculous.
Like 40 between them or something almost.
I mean, the thing is, the biggest takeaway for me is for Everton to have the number of efforts on goal that they had, and for Everson arguably to walk out of it man of the match quite possibly at the end. I don't know if he did get it or not, but couldn't have argued if he did, to be honest. How are you letting Everton have that many efforts on goal? And that's
23 efforts, 8 on target for Everton, 15
hell.
For...
I think in the first half particularly as well, like for Everton
3 big
it was
chances,
massive.
2 missed, 4 for Leicester, 3 missed, 7 big chances in the game.
Right, let's break this down on Everton first, because no one's going to buy Everton FPL, certainly. Dominic Calvert-Lewin was good, really lively. I tweeted about 15, 20 minutes into the game that it was the fittest and sharpest I'd seen him for a long time. And I couldn't. It'd been so long since I'd seen that, I couldn't even think to measure if it had been a year or longer. And that's absolutely huge for Everton. Where Sean Dyche, I think, has been overly cautious with him, been like, well, we need to make sure we get him right, has been the right decision. Absolutely, rather than him breaking down again. He looked fit, he got through the game, obviously took his penalty fairly well. How he didn't end up scoring with a chance he had late in the first half, probably only he could tell you. I think what happened, he missed from about 2 yards, Suj. He gambled on Soyuncu missing the cross he'd already committed, so then all he could do when it deflected off Soyuncu was basically just divert his foot to the ball. Couldn't actually physically kick it, he could just divert himself at it. And it ended up just obviously going straight to Everson and staying out. And then right from that, on the breakaway, Vardy should have scored for Leicester literally 10 seconds later. So it was that sort of game, bit of a car crash. Seamus Coleman obviously unfortunately picked up a horrendous injury, which could even finish his career at his age, unfortunately. Went off late in the first half. Nathan Patterson came on. He might be one that would be an enabler for people for something else. I would say Everton's last two of Wolves away and Bournemouth at home have clean sheet potential in them if you were dying on your arse. And I imagine he'll play at right back because neither Holgate or Godfrey has worked in that position for Everton. Onana missed out. Apparently he's not been well enough to start. Iwobi and McNeil had really threatening moments. But what I didn't understand from Everton was all the good chances they had in the second half came from counter-attack. Basically direct running through Leicester. I couldn't believe that he didn't bring Damari Gray on. Didn't make sense to me. He's a great ball carrier. Didn't understand why they didn't use him. Even if it had been actually even in place for Calvert-Lewin at that late stage in the game, I was very surprised Sean Dyche didn't use him. It's a better point for Everton than it is for Leicester, although Leicester fixture-wise and the offensive quality they have, I think most of us think Leicester will be okay, but there's obviously room for error is not good now. Maddison taking the penalty was bizarre.
Yeah, when I saw he'd missed it, I was like, the first question was, why is he taking it?
So
it wasn't a case of, oh, he's missed it, because I would have thought Captain Tielemans could have taken.
Vardy, mate.
Yeah, well, Vardy, then Tielemans, then Maddison.
So Dean Smith said that Iheanacho was first choice penalty take, which obviously he'd taken against, who did he score against the other week? He scored a penalty against Wolves. And we thought Iheanacho took it because Vardy got injured in the moment
foul
that happened, right? We thought he couldn't take it. But Dean Smith said, like, Iheanacho had been penalty taken. And what Dean Smith said after the game, he said that Iheanacho had obviously been practicing, and Maddison joined in when they were doing it. And so then he decided that Maddison was going to be next in line. Weird. How many's Jamie Vardy taken for Leicester? He normally just puts his foot through it, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And smashes the thing. I can't think that Vardy became bad at penalties or anything. Maybe he didn't fancy it. I don't know. Tielemans, as you're right, has taken them as well, certainly. He was often standing for Vardy on penalties last year.
Correct.
And the only penalty I could remember seeing James Maddison take was in a League Cup quarter-final with Man City, and he took the worst penalty I've seen. It was like a back pass, just rolled it to the corner. Keeper caught it, rolling down on the floor. Keeper was on the floor rolling before the ball comes to him. I wouldn't criticise him for the penalty in the sense, I hate that. Oh, it's a terrible penalty. No, he's gone straight down the middle, and if the keeper stands up, that's what's going to happen. And fair play to Jordan Pickford and the water bottle for getting that right and staying it up. Did you see the water bottle image? 60% stay central.
Yeah.
Good stuff, that. Luke Thomas played left back, didn't play well. Didn't think that was a solution for him. Soyuncu and Fass I think they're both good individually, but I think have vulnerabilities. Everson will definitely stay in goal. He was good last night, so he made some good saves. They played with Ndidi deeper than Samari and Tielemans, which gives them a bit of a stronger balance and core in that area. But it meant shunting Maddison primarily out to the right. And when Maddison went back central and they'd taken Ndidi off, Leicester looked much more threatening. To counter that, so did Everton, getting in behind the lines between Leicester's two of Tielemans and Samari and their back line. Overall, probably a fair result. It was a car crash. It was brilliant. It was completely absorbing. It was one of them games you ain't looking at your phone or nothing. It was really absorbing. And actually, for two teams that right struggling, the quality level was decent. Primarily because I think Leicester want to play the right way. But Everton started so well, and I think they deserve something from the game, Suj.
Wouldn't be. It's not beyond the realms of possibility both of them stay up. You know, Leicester, Leeds and Forest and Southampton being the three that go down. Very tight at the bottom.
The one I'm most worried for of the four, I think, unfortunately, Southampton could win all four and they could still go. If they did win all four, they'll probably stay up. But I can't see it. Fixtures you mentioned, there's vulnerabilities.
Leeds, I think,
Liverpool at home final day and stuff. I can't see it.
Leeds for me are going.
I think Leeds of the four. Yeah,
Possibly
on what I've seen
Everton
recently.
or Forest. I think Leicester will be all right now.
I have a sneaky that Everton will win their last two games, which are Wolves away and Bournemouth at home.
This is going to be fun.
I don't know if that'd be enough.
What?
Probably if Forest beat Southampton, that puts huge pressure on.
Yeah.
Because realistically, this week,
Everton
go to Brighton. I mean, Everton could go to Brighton inferior and win 1-0, but they could also go there and lose 6-0. Leeds won't be expecting anything at City. Leicester will be confident getting signed at Fulham. But if Forest beats Forest, it feels like probably need to beat Southampton now on Monday night. They'll go last. They'll know what all the others have done. They've probably got to win that one. But he's flipped. This is, again, what I said earlier about talking with Mark. If you could get to this point and still have it kind of in your hands, it now flips where of the four, arguably Forest have got the best of what's left.
James, what have we got left for us this week?
Sky tomorrow, Clash of Correspondents Thursdays, Wolves versus Villa, with Bradley Parker and Lee Jackson. And Friday, we'll have a look at the games from tonight, Arsenal, Chelsea, the two games tomorrow, and obviously Brighton, Man United Thursday. It's the point, like you talking about, gambling Liverpool player. We'll have so much more information on Friday, and I think we'll have more information on Brighton, United, Manchester City as well. So we'll come back and do a slightly shorter one on Friday and reassess what we learned from this week. Hopefully the title race will be over.
Well, hopefully not, because West Ham are going to go and win at City. If you want to support the show, you head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL. Start of the month, mate, which means they get all the additional shows. Prize leagues are kind of done now, because if you're entering this late, you're not entering. But there is the additional content. The Slack channel's really good.
No, technically, May in FPL doesn't start till this
weekend.
Fine,
you might have one manager of the month you could win. Slack channel's really active and a great bunch of people in there. And of course, if you are one of the patrons, as and when we do some meetups and bits and pieces in the summer, you could be involved as well. And that is on the cards. Patreon.com/Planet FPL. We'd love to have you over there. Now, at the start of the month, perfect time to do it. Quality of questions on Twitter, James.
It's abysmal.
Have you read them? There's only 8. And
I just know that it's at that stage of the season.
Yeah. And it's Isak or Wilson or both, whichever. Can't really answer that.
On Isak or Wilson, the right answer is Raul.
Differentials and all that kind of stuff that we've covered off, and then some stuff about is Kane leaving Spurs? We'll talk about that on Tottenham. There's nothing that we need to answer or that we haven't answered already in the 8 questions.
Can I just do Kane for a sec? Just if someone's asked that, just because I get asked every week on the deadline streams and stuff. Anyway,
he's leaving.
Tottenham can't sell him.
Because
there'd be a fucking war.
Yeah, you'd just be Chelsea next year. 13th, 14th, 12th, 13th, 14th.
I've said this several times over. If Tottenham get a sizable amount of money that is worth the value of the player with 1 year left on his contract, i.e. the first number is a 1, then Tottenham should very seriously consider taking that money, even if it is from a Manchester United, a competitive rival, if you will. Tottenham should take it. But they won't.
If
they can't, Serge. The only way he gets sold, in my opinion, is if he goes on strike or something. Harry Kane's not gonna do it. As close as he came was with City. He was like, come back from training a little bit late and stuff. He's not gonna go on strike and force it and stuff. If Kane is desperate to leave this summer, then he'll go for free next year.
If the number just needs to start with a 1, I'd pay 11 million to buy him, to make him a paper bag salesman, James. I reckon he'd do all right at selling paper bags.
You're very funny.
11 million. Harry Kane in paper bags. The future's bright. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode.
Have you got 11 million, or have you already spent that on your training for your fight with Jurgen Klopp?
Because I'll get him sponsored to sell paper bags. We'll get a TV documentary show. Listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode. Thank you for all the likes and shares and all that kind of stuff. Head over to Twitter, share the pod. Let's get as many listens as we possibly can. We'll be back at you tomorrow. Stay safe, look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. As always, play it your way. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please, man child.